much?
Yeah.
Right, that's the question. I just have to ask because you mentioned your mom was from France. You've traveled for this documentary, and you traveled in general throughout the world, in Russia, Ukraine. What are the defining characteristics of these cultures? Let's go with Russia. So as I told you, I'm half Ukrainian, half
Yeah.
Russian. I came from that part of the world. What are some interesting, beautiful aspects of the culture of Russia and Ukraine?
I can't really speak honestly of Ukraine. I was there only in 1983 when I visited the Soviet Union under the communism. And Kiev was beautiful. It was one of the nicer places I went, but they were very much stultified by the communist system. They all were. The best places to visit in Russia were always in the south, whether Georgia or the Muslim countries. It was always a better culture in terms of comfort.
Hmm.
But communism was rough, and that was the end of it, pretty much. Brezhnev regime, and then Andropov. Gorbachev was 3 years in the future when I was there. So I can't talk about Ukraine and they're not been friendly to me since I made the Putin interviews. Ukraine has banned me, I believe. They've been very tough on people who are critical. I say the Russian people have been very special to me. I'm perhaps because of my European upbringing, but I enjoy talking to them. I find them very open, very generous, and they appreciate support. They appreciate people who say, I understand why your government is doing this or this or this. I've tried to stay open-minded and listen to both sides. The thing that I have seen as an American is, of course, this American enmity towards Russia from the very beginning. I grew up in 1940, 46. I was born in the 50s. It was so anti-Russian. They were everywhere. They were in our schools. They were in our State Department. They were spying on us. They were stealing the country from us. That was the way the American right wing, not even the right wing, I'd say the Republican Party, pictured the Russians. They were actively engaged in infiltrating America and changing our thinking.
Yeah.
And television shows were based on this. It was very much the J. Edgar Hoover mentality that communism was even behind the student protests of the 1960s. This was the direction in which the FBI and the CIA were thinking. So I grew up with a prejudice. And it took me many years. My father was a Republican, and he was a stockbroker, and he was a very intelligent man. But even he, because he was a World War II soldier, he was a colonel, had fallen under the influence. In order to be successful in American business in the 1950s, you had to have a very strong anti-Soviet line, very strong. You wouldn't get ahead if you expressed any kind of let's end this Cold War, any kind of activity of that nature. You would be cast aside as a pinko or somebody who was not completely on the board with the American way of doing business, which was capitalism works, communism doesn't.
And in particular, communism is embodied by the Soviet Union, is the enemy. So hence,
Yeah, that's the way you were.
The narrative behind the Cold War.